Hello and welcome back to the Grandmaster division of the Intermezzo Championship. In the first game I finished at the second position against Epogi and Wolves, starting my season with 2 points. And now finally, with a little bit of delay because I was traveling for some days, we will now take a look at the second game of this season, of this group, which will be against Wolves and totsilence. Before we are going to take a look at this game, however, I want to do something that I forgot in the last video when I introduced the players, and we will start with that very quickly. And for that, we will take a very quick look at the clicker rating again, because at the last time I showed you just the normal ratings, which is of course very fine, and you can see it here again. But the Intermezzo Championship is of course a pure 3-player tournament, so I thought that it of course could also be quite interesting to take a look at the 3-player ratings that we have access to thanks to this very nice website. And now we will do that now, and we can see very interestingly that first of all, I'm and also some of the other players have generally a higher ranking. I'm only on rank 15 in the normal rating, in the overall rating, but on rank 3 still in the 3-player rating, showing that in 3-player games my record is still relatively good. But then also interestingly, totsilence is out of the second best rated player out of the group on the 7th position overall. When we take a look at the overall ranking again, there he's on the 33rd position and here at the 7th. And Epogi, who is in the overall rating very well rated, seems to have some problems maybe with a 3-player game and having not the greatest 3-player rating. So I thought those are some interesting observations that I wanted to share with you, but now without further ado, let's take a look at the game. In this game I'm playing in the second position, and first of all we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we can see that there is some culture synergy in H3 with Chaplin and Fleming. There's no Marlene Dietrich, no Hollywood, but the internet is there. We have not the most lab leaders, but there's Steve Jobs and Marie Curie, as well as the Manhattan Project, but no spaceflight. We have both Pierre and Mandela. We have the Red Cross, which is important. Gandhi is there as well. Then we have the Suez Canal and James Cook in H2, so definitely some colonization payoff being there. We also have Railroad plus James Watt. Maria Theresa is there, but no ocean liner service. We have Newton and Nobel for some science synergy, and then Catherine and Napoleon for some additional military actions. In H1 you have Jan Žižka as a military action leader. Apart from him, not that many leaders that can really help with the strength. We have Columbus, Eleanor, Isabella, who can all be interesting to set up for a colonization game. Leonardo for some lab and printing press synergy, as well as Gutenberg. And then there's also Michelangelo together with Machu Picchu, St. Peter's Basilica. Wolves is in first position and he just takes the pyramids, which seems to be the best pick here. And then for me, there may be not the most exciting options. The leaders and wonders available for 1 civil actions are maybe not the greatest, and then taking one from the 2 civil action areas also not too great. I'm not the biggest fan of Alex. Boudica, of course, can be a very fine leader. However, here it is quite likely that at least one of my opponents might maybe go for Caesar and Alex, and sometimes she can still be fine in such a situation, especially there is still the library and the Rome roads in the deck. Both are strong economical wonders, and then maybe going for a second warrior before the second lab, finishing the wonder first and then only then going for the second lab can be a fine start. But in this situation I at the end went with Caesar and the frugality. The reason for that being that if totsilence doesn't make the decision to go for the Colossus for 3 civil actions, which is certainly a possibility for him, there's some synergy, but he could also take 2 cards, for example, Hanging Gardens, Richland, Boudica, Frugality, so he has some other options, and if he doesn't go for the Colossus, then I can actually go for Caesar and Colossus, which can potentially help me set up maybe for a colonization game for strength push, so that would be a nice synergy. And if he takes the Colossus, at least then both the library and Roman roads are uncontested, so I didn't want to commit to the Hanging Gardens, and I at least get a leader, get a yellow card, and especially if I should get the Colossus, there's also a chance that I can actually get quite some nice value out of my leader. Then totsilence doesn't go for the Colossus, instead goes for Boudica and Frugality, taking Boudica with the knowledge that I will have Caesar with an additional strength, but he also knows that there are some interesting wonders coming, and maybe he's fine with potentially delaying his second lab for a little bit in order to build a second warrior. Wolves, the only leader available for one civil action for him would be Alex, but he isn't willing to go for him, instead grabs the Engineering Genius, which could provide him quite some nice value if it in the end helps him to finish the pyramids one turn earlier, and maybe at the next turn he can either go for Confucius or Sun Tzu. Now it is my turn, I go for Caesar, and as you can see the Colossus is actually available for one civil action for me, and I will just do a very standard turn, going for Caesar, building a mine, increasing my population, taking the Colossus, not using the Frugality because I still have a lot of hand space, and especially if I maybe see 2 times with Caesar there might be some stuff revealed, and then it could be a bit easier to get out of corruption with not having played the Frugality yet. What is nice, and also a bit unfortunate for totsilence, is that both Rome Roads and Library were the last cards to come out of the deck, meaning that both of them will now stay on 2 civil actions for him, so he can't easily grab them, and at the next turn there's a chance that they actually might be discarded. I draw 3 cards, 1 event, the Barbarians, a Tactic, the Fighting Band, and also a Naval Trade Agreement Pact. Totsilent isn't willing to go for one of those wonders for 2 civil actions, instead grabs an early copy of Iron, maybe could have a shot at still getting one of those wonders at his next turn. It will depend on whether Wolves take Sun Tzu or not, and then he can maybe soon go for Iron, and if he has the Iron in hand, he has something to invest into, and can maybe also go for an H1 wonder in case the HA wonders are gone. Now it's Wolf's turn, he will build a second lab to get some science production going. He will interestingly grab another copy of Engineering Genius. With having both copies, he is now guaranteed to be able to finish the pyramids at the next turn. However, grabbing that Engineering Genius will come at the cost of electing a leader, but maybe he's fine with not getting the additional draws from Sun Tzu for another turn. Also interesting that he goes for Sun Tzu over Confucius, but Sun Tzu, with me playing Caesar and Colossus, can maybe help him to set up nicely for the military. Maybe he can choose some selected events and put them into the deck, and those might be revealed quickly, so I think it's a fine pick. And also it might be a small hate draft against totsilence, because with taking Sun Tzu, as said, both Rome Roads and Library will be discarded, and totsilence has to wait for one of those H1 wonders now, if he wants to build a wonder. Now it is my turn. I start with seeding the Barbarians, which could potentially be a bit risky, but I just wanted to get the deck moving, and hopefully with Caesar and Colossus there's a chance that I will be strongest in case I should end up having the most culture. I seed. There is the development of markets revealed, no development of politics, so I can't accede another time, meaning that I will offer this naval trade agreement to totsilence, getting the additional colonization force. I have the Colossus, there's the Suez Canal James Cook in the game, and there's a chance to grab cartography this turn, so despite me not having drawn any colonies yet, I thought it could be quite strong to have this additional colonization force, and maybe if I draw some colonies soon, some colonies could be revealed also quite soon if the event deck flips quickly. So this pact is accepted. I will build a second lab to also get some science production going, and then as said, I will grab this copy of cartography. Of course, it's a little bit of a speculative pick, but it just has a huge upside potential. A lot of payoff is in this game, and so I just wanted to have this in hand. The alternatives are not that great. I could take 2 copies of Frugality to have a lot of population available. That could be fine. Something like cultural heritage, maybe an early irrigation could be interesting, but I just wanted to have the Frugality here, as it might allow myself to set up for a strong colonization game. For the last civil action, I thought about just grabbing a copy of Frugality, not going into consumption, getting the Frugality, basically netting me 3 additional food, and especially if I draw some colonies that don't give me additional yellow tokens, it could be quite strong to have a good population income. But on the other hand, I'm playing Caesar, I want to seed a lot, maybe Wolves with having Sun Tzu also wants to start seeding, and with that there's definitely a decent chance that something like development of religion or warfare could be revealed, and also it is a bit of a civil action cost, could leave me a little bit inflexible for the next turn, so at the end I instead use the Frugality A now to increase my population, having a free population and maybe being a bit more flexible at the next turn. I draw some cards, again 1 event, the foray that I can potentially push, but that could end up being a nice event for me if I manage to be part of one of the 2 strongest. Totsilence this turn has to use the additional resources for the military from Boudica, but thanks to taking additional food, I think, from the development of markets, and thanks to having the Frugality in hand, he can actually increase his population a bunch of times, has now already enough population to commit to the second warrior, but also actually build a second lab to get the science production rolling, and with that, in case neither Wolves or me gets stronger, he can actually take the science from Boudica at the next turn and get some early iron production running. Wolves this turn will finish the pyramids, but to get out of corruption, he will not use the engineering genius, will keep that one in hand, maybe to help with an H1 or H2 wonder, and then with the last 2 civil actions he will elect Sun Tzu and increases his population. Now all of the players are at 2 strength. With the Colossus and the cartography in hand, I was confident enough to push the foray into the deck. The event revealed is actually the development of religion, so I get rewarded for increasing my population at the turn before. I can't seed another event, and this turn actually it is a bit of a problem to get nicely out of corruption, and because of that I actually decided to cancel the naval trade agreement again, just not being forced to do a bit of an awkward turn, and also up to this point I haven't drawn a colony yet, so I just don't know how nice it will be. If I would have had a nice way to get out of corruption, I probably would have kept it, but I have Colossus and cartography, and maybe a colonization bonus of 3 is also enough to just win some colonies very cheaply. What I could have done in order to get out of corruption is to take the irrigation and actually go for 2 upgrades this turn. Without me cancelling this pact, 1 upgrade would not be enough, building 1 step of the Colossus would not be enough, so I would need to go for irrigation and then either for 2 upgrades or for 1 upgrade and building a step of the Colossus. But at the end I decided to cancel the pact, because now I can actually go for irrigation, go for 1 upgrade. That 1 upgrade gets me out of corruption, and then I can actually grab this copy of Breakthrough. I don't have a leader or a wonder that gives me additional science, and I think in such a situation passing on a Breakthrough that is available for 1 civil action is just something that is extremely painful and also expensive, so I wanted to play a turn where I can grab that copy. With not going for a 2nd farm upgrade, I have enough resource to finish the Colossus at the next turn and maybe already prepare myself for potential strength events. I could have also not developed irrigation yet, built a step of the Colossus, but I thought getting some additional food production could be nice. I have already pushed 2 strength events, and with additional food income, maybe it will be a bit easier for me to make sure that I can put enough workers into the military in case it will be needed. I draw some events. This time I draw 2 events, allowing myself to potentially double seed at the next turn, the Rebellion and the Reign of Terror. Totsilence can take a science from Boudica now, goes for an iron upgrade, and with the last 2 civil actions just grabs Jan Žižka. There's Sun Tzu in the game, so Jan Žižka has some very big potential, and despite maybe there's being some other interesting possibilities like grabbing one of those wonders, maybe a rich land to go for a double upgrade at the next turn, he decides that Jan Žižka is the most important pick in the situation. Now it's Wolf's turn, he doesn't seed. Instead, sadly, he will offer an open borders agreement pact, which of course is always not great to see between your opponents. Now both him and totsilence will play on an additional military action. He will then increase his population, is willing to pay 2 civil action for knights, maybe indicating that he will end up upgrading a knight's tactic. Also, he grabs 2 copies of rich land, so while he doesn't upgrade any economy for now, he is at least at 5 civil actions, and as soon as he gets an ideal copy of iron or coal, he might be able to upgrade very quickly. Now it is my turn, I want to continue pushing. I start by seeding the Reign of Terror. I have already committed to some strength events, so I now just want to commit even more. The event revealed is the development of planning. The options for that are development of science, development of warfare, and development of trade routes. I will end up taking the trade routes just because it will maybe have the most value. Science could also be an idea, because science definitely will be very valuable for me, but also resources and food still could be quite important. And after that I see the rebellion. I have a religion for now. I will have knowledge about the event, and so I was willing to seed that, even though it might just end up being a neutral event. So far all of the events have been seeded by me. I opened the development of agriculture for some additional food. I will finish the Colossus to get stronger, because the event deck might flip before my next turn, and then I am now at 4 strength. After finishing the Colossus I have 2 civil actions left, and yeah, there are some different options on what I could do. There are some cards that I could take, Swordsman, to have them together with the fighting ban, but it seems a bit expensive, especially I want to get out of corruption. In order to achieve that, I will increase my population. Then I have one civil action left that I could use to take a card. There could be an idea to take the bread and circuses. I just seeded a rebellion, so having a way to get additional happy faces might be quite important. And additionally, there's also Pierre in the game, so bread and circuses is a nice technology to have. But at the end, with now having already the free religion, I decided to just increase my population again and just be a bit more flexible at a future turn on how I want to spend my civil actions. There could also be the possibility of me going for Great Wall, but it might be a bit expensive and I don't have that many infantry units yet. I could have also thought about the warfare, but I have already cartography in hand. I don't have that much science, that many civil actions, so I can't easily allow myself to go for a speculative pick. I mean, I did already with the cartography, so now I maybe have to even be a bit more careful. I draw 2 events again in a territory, which could of course be interesting, and also another strength event. Totsilence seeds, so now the event deck will flip, the development of civil life is revealed. He will use it to increase his population, will go for the Great Wall, takes the swordsman in hand, goes for an iron upgrade, builds a warrior, and then decides to keep Boudica, doesn't elect Shishka for now, stays weaker, so he purposely will make it that at the next turn he will get another 2 resources out of Boudica, and that is of course quite a nice value for an HA leader. Especially if he needs to build some strength anyway, but it also means he stays a bit weak, and if wolves get stronger, he could be at the danger of getting hit by some strength events. Now it's Wolf's turn. He will use the development of civil life to develop the knights. After that, will develop the code of laws, which is an interesting decision because he's now very low in science. I do think, especially with having pyramids, it's a decision that I would not do, but if he of course somehow manages to still do all of the necessary stuff throughout the next turns, it can still be quite nice to have this additional action, but it might also make it quite difficult for him to get some production going and maybe get into a government form, so I'm not sure if I would do the same, but maybe it will turn out fine for him. He will build a knight. Interestingly goes for Eleanor, also interestingly doesn't reveal a tactic. He has committed to knights, so it seems that maybe he still doesn't have a nice tactic that he can go for. Instead will go for the Taj Mahal for free, has the engineering genius to build that one nicely, takes the theology, builds another knight, and with the theology makes sure that he can just upgrade his religion and with that avoid any uprising issues, also making him the strongest, prepared for strength events. And yeah, maybe he just built the 2 knights to get stronger and doesn't have a tactic in hand for them yet. Otherwise, of course, it would have maybe made sense to reveal a tactic already and get a Sun Tzu upgrade. Now it is my turn. I actually seed the Crusades, as you can see, but it's a bit of a tough decision because with the one culture of seeding, I actually tie on wolves in culture, meaning I would have the most culture if the barbarians would be revealed and I would lose a population. But on the other hand, I also wanted to keep the deck moving. There's a Reign of Terror that could be revealed, there's a Foray that could be revealed, and with that I made the decision to at least push this one event into the deck, hoping that no barbarians are on top. And as actually there are no barbarians, instead the Foray is revealed, which I will use to just take 3 resources because I have a fine amount of population with going for some early food production. With the other politics fair action, I will offer the Trade Routes Agreement, wanting to use food as resources, but it gets rejected by Totsilence. And this turn I will then go for the Swordsman. There are some more strength events coming, and so I just want to have a way to build my strength efficiently. Thanks to the Foray I have a bunch of resources and I will use them to build a Swordsman, build another Swordsman, and even upgrade a Warrior to Swordsman using all of my military actions now to go up to 9 strength, maybe even being a bit threatening to my opponents as I'm still Caesar and could potentially threaten a double aggression. I use all of my military actions, but I don't reveal the fighting band tactic yet. I could have also not gone for the upgrade and revealed it, but the thing is Totsilence has Jan Shishka, he has the Great Wall. There's at least a chance, even though it would be a bit risky, his Shishka pick, but could still be the right choice against Sun Tzu. There's a chance that maybe he doesn't have any tactic, maybe no infantry tactic, and then it could be potentially nice to not reveal that to him so that he is playing Shishka for not the greatest value for a while, so I decided to leave that fighting band tactic in hand for now. And with the last 2 civil actions I just grabbed those 2 yellow cards. I don't have the most resources, so reserves can potentially be a bit helpful even though it's not the most efficient card, and I'm also in 4 civil actions in the Urban Growth. Could be interesting either to get into alchemy or maybe still get into this copy of Bread and Circuses because the age might be ending soon, and if it will be ending then I might need some additional happy faces if the rebellion isn't revealed yet, so the Britain Circus might also be a target to use my urban growth. I keep the colony, the tactic, and a colonization card. Totsilence increases his population, goes for the swordsman, goes for Jan Shishka, builds an additional swordsman, has the legion tactic, with that already is at 9 strength, goes for one more upgrade, has just enough resource to finish the Great Wall at the next turn. The Great Wall at the next turn will also cover his happy faces, so it's all coming here nicely together for him, nice planning by him. And he will at the next turn be able to finish the Great Wall, can maybe grab one card, will then be at 13 strength, and at turns after can still go for some upgrades, so he's now in a nice position to take the strength lead, and I maybe have to try at least not being the weakest so that I don't get hit by the Reign of Terror. I didn't see the inhabited territory into the deck during my turn, which I could have done, but then the chances for a Barbarian's reveal could have been even greater, and I also had this Columbus in mind, which I thought could be a nice leader, as we are now quite late in the age anyway, and it could set me up nicely for the Suez Canal if I get a colony with Columbus. I have Colossus, so there's a chance that I might hit a jackpot, and also if I would have seeded the inhabited territory, I would have yet another culture, meaning that if wolvs seeds at his turn, which he might want to do with Eleanor, then now he would lose to the Barbarians, but with one more event seeded, I would actually lose to the Barbarians potentially, in case Totsilence should get stronger, or then just no one could lose the population if Totsilence doesn't get stronger. So at the end I decided to not push this inhabited territory 1. Wolves seeds, and there are indeed the Barbarians revealed, so I was happy that that event worked out nicely. That Wolves now has the most culture, has to lose the population. He will end up destroying this warrior, increasing his population, building a knight, interestingly now revealing the heavy cavalry tactic. It kind of looks like that maybe he actually has drawn it either with his last draws or maybe now with the draws of Eleanor, because if he had it already at the turn before, I do think it would have made sense to reveal it with Sun Tzu and get the additional +1 strength, because both I and Totsilence couldn't easily go for it. So my guess would be that he has drawn it now, or maybe at his last draw step. He then develops the theology, goes for an upgrade, takes the monarchy, the patriotism, and the irrigation. With not taking too many cards from the row, there will be another turn in age 1 for me, meaning I can get the civil action back when electing a new leader now. I could potentially go for Leonardo here, together with alchemy, get some science production going, and maybe that could be strong, because I will still need a lot of science to get into a government form and stuff. But with the Suez Canal in the game, with me having this colony, and with there being a chance that I might just hit a jackpot with something like autonomous territory or maybe inhabited territory too, I thought that I just have to go for Columbus here. I can use the military action from Caesar. I don't push to keep the colony in hand for Columbus in case I don't hit a jackpot with the Colossus. Then I will use the military action from Caesar to reveal the fighting band tactic. I elect Columbus. I then will go for the bread and circuses. I thought about just maybe building another swordsman, getting even stronger, preparing myself nicely for the events. But then at the next turn, maybe I will go for the inhabited territory, but it would be a bit annoying if I draw something like strategic 2 or wealthy 2 with the Colossus, and I'm forced to go for a yellow token colony just because I need to fix my happy faces. So I kind of want to have this bread and circuses in hand, especially with the rebellion coming. But if I now go for an additional swordsman, then the question is what to do. I can go for another food upgrade, maybe play reserves resource, that could be fine. But with losing to the duello tokens, there's also just a chance that the rebellion might be revealed. And so at the end, instead of building an additional swordsman, I made the decision to go for bread and circuses and just build one with the urban growth, at least putting myself to 10 strength, so that there is no danger that I will be the weakest on Totsilence turn. But there is a chance that on Wolf's turn I might be the weakest. That will be quite likely, and if the Reign of Terror is on top, then that could be a bit unfortunate. But if I go for something different, I will lose the yellow tokens, and then the rebellion will be on top. I'll just lose 2 civil actions, so there's just one event that I can't easily prepare for here, and at the end I decided to go with the bread and circuses and rather prepare for the rebellion instead of preparing more to avoid for certain to get hit by the Reign of Terror. I draw first 2 cards from H1, and I was quite happy to see the vast territory might be an upgrade in the inhabited territory 1, but of course now I will also get my Colossus draw, so let's see if I maybe hit a jackpot. And I actually do get a colony, but maybe at this point of the game, potentially weakest colony. I have already enough happy faces, and at this point of the game, I think Vast and Inhabited 1 are probably stronger than Historic 2, but maybe still nice to have it in hand, so that I can keep it in hand and potentially go for a Suez Canal at some point. Totsilence will just finish the Great Wall, takes the Code of Laws, he's relatively low in science, let's see if he will be able to utilize that one. I was a bit worried now, because now I am the weakest, how it was expected. Wolf Seeds, I was hoping for Rebellion or the one unknown event that is still in there, that was seeded by Totsilence. But sadly, that timing, while the timing of Barbarians was in my favor, sadly the Reign of Terror timing is not ideal for me. I'm at this point the weakest. At my next turn I can get stronger again, but sadly I will lose the Reign of Terror, to the population to the Reign of Terror. Wolves has a little bit of an hand space issue. Before using this Engineering Genius, he just had a full hand, and that will we will see that it will make his turn a bit awkward. He first of all can make one space in hand with using the Engineering Genius, but can't finish the Taj Mahal yet. He will then go for Nobel, which I think is a nice pickup for him. Gets the civil action back from Eleanor, so Eleanor was used as a nice transitional leader. And also I think with his very low income and generally his civilization hasn't been upgraded nicely yet, Nobel is just a very big improvement. Might help him getting all his stuff done, even though spending a lot of science into the Code of Laws, which I still think could have potentially have some troublesome consequences, but I think Nobel will now help him to be fine with the science spent into that technology, and also the strength, of course, being useful. So I think Nobel a very strong pickup for Wolves. And then there are 3 civil actions left. He has only 1 hand space, and what he will do is to actually play the Patriotism and then take the Iron and another copy of Richland, making it that he just plays the Patriotism to get rid of it. He doesn't get an additional draw, he doesn't use it to build a unit, but it could still be the right decision. I think it is probably the right decision, because with taking this Iron and Richland, with actually now having all copies of Richland in his hand, and even though it only has 3 resources at the next turn, he can go for Iron thanks to the Science of Nobel, and then just upgrade all of the 3 mines for only 3 resources. So I think that is a very interesting and very strong setup, and I was a bit worried that he gets quite a strong boost here. Now it is my turn. I could potentially wait with Columbus, but I will build a unit so I don't get a lot of draws, and also have some problems keeping enough cards in hand. So I will just use Columbus immediately, and the question is which colony do I want to use? And I do think it's the right decision not to go for the historic territory here. I think economical value and stuff is more important than now getting some happy faces that I don't need and getting some culture that will only be useful at the end. And so I went with the vast territory, because I do think that is the stronger one than the inhabited territory, but I think I didn't consider during the game, I just didn't really thought about it, I just went for the vast territory, but there's one reason here to go for the inhabited territory, maybe you can try to spot it, and that is that, of course, I will lose a population to the Reign of Terror, and if I now, during the politics phase, colonize the inhabited territory, I actually have the ability to lose a free worker instead of having to destroy something, and maybe that could be reason enough to go for the inhabited territory here. So I didn't really consider it. I'm also not sure if it would be the right decision, because when I go for the vast territory, as I did during the game, I can just lose this religion, and the rebellion is out. At the moment I still have more than enough happy faces, and the additional yellow token might on the long run still be more important than keeping the religion, which would be possible with the inhabited territory, but it was a mistake that I didn't really consider this as a maybe more viable option that I thought it would be during the game. I will increase my population. I also will build an additional swordsman to get stronger again. I mean, there are not many strength events left, but there could potentially have been seeded one by Totsilence, even though that I think would have been a bit risky in his position when he seeded it. But still getting stronger, going up to 13 strength, maybe forcing my opponents to react again could still be quite nice. So I built this additional swordsman, also helps me to get out of corruption. Then I can increase my population to get out of corruption. And there is quite some interesting stuff in the row. There's an early copy of coal. There's a chance that wolves might still take it, but luckily he's just missing 1 science to get into it, and also actually the resources, so just going for 3 iron upgrades might be the better choice for him. And also I don't have the most science. I can't easily go for a coal upgrade at the next turn. At the end I decided to just grab the scientific method. I have enough resource to go for 1 upgrade at the next turn. I can finally get some production going. Getting some science production first might be the right order anyway in the situation. I could have also taken the breakthrough, maybe then somehow using my last civil action, maybe even taking the alchemy instead of the scientific method, but I was willing to pay the additional price because it is just a better solution. There's also Newton in the game. I'm wanting to get a fresh replacement for Columbus anyway. I could have thought about going for Catherine. The 3rd military action I think would at the moment be quite helpful, but I thought just making sure that I can get my production going is maybe more important. I could have played the same turn and just taken Catherine, but I couldn't elect her yet. If I elect her at the next turn, then I mean, I would have just enough civil actions to elect her. Maybe if there is still a copy, take one of those copies of scientific method at the next turn, go for an upgrade. It would be my whole turn. If coal is still available in the row, I then wouldn't have enough civil actions to take coal. So I just felt like I can't easily go for a leader and all of my upgrades and making sure that I can go for more upgrades in the future. So I thought I'd rather keep myself open for another leader, even though of course there's the danger that it might take some turns and that I then for some turns don't get a value out of having a leader. I keep the historic territory to have a colony in hand for the Suez Canal and also 1 colonization card. Totsilence seeds, he is the strongest at the moment. The rebellion is revealed. Oh, I think I said that the rebellion is out, but of course it was still in the deck. But I also, even with losing the religion, I had still more than enough happy faces. Totsilence is willing to pay quite a bit of a price to take the scientific method here, which I do think is a good decision, because at the next turn he can go for 2 upgrades, and I do think that will boost his position quite nicely. He will then go for 1 more upgrade, making sure that he's the strongest also after his turn. The last event is actually the one that was seeded by him. Wolves doesn't seed, instead he will offer the International Trade Agreement, which I was very happy to see, because not only am I part of this pact already very early in H2, but it also actually cancels the Open Borders Agreement that both Wolves and Totsilence had together, so of course I instantly accepted, even though the additional resources might also of course be quite helpful for Wolves. And he indeed doesn't go for the coal, just it's more important, and I definitely agree with him here, to get the production going quickly, and thanks to those 3 Richlands he can just go for 3 upgrades immediately, with at the start only having had 3 resources, so that's quite nice. And then he takes the Revolutionary Idea and the Selective Breeding. I think a very efficient turn by him. Now it is my turn. I will go for the scientific method. I don't seed, as with me having a strong colony I didn't want to risk the independence declaration, and so I go for 1 scientific method upgrade. And with my remaining civil actions, I first of all took the coal. I just want to have that in hand. There's a chance that I maybe can go for James Watt, and I just want to get my resource production going at some point. And then, of course, it could make sense to just grab the rich land, but the thing is, at the next turn I don't have enough science yet to go into the coal, and to maybe still upgrade my economy at the next turn, it could maybe be nice to go for the 2nd scientific method upgrade already. I will need a lot of science to get into coal and a government form without it taking too long, and so instead of the rich land, I went with the urban growth here, just allowing myself to go for the 2nd upgrade, and then maybe in 2 turns I will be able to go for coal, especially if I may be able to grab one of those efficient upgrades. One of them is in the road at the next turn. I don't go for the Republic, but I think all of the other things are just too important, and without knowing whether I get strategy or not, and Catherine already gone, the Republic could also end up being a bit of a dangerous solution. I keep the historic territory and a colonization card. I actually draw a tactic, which is a bit difficult to transition into from my position, but could still be nice to have. The immigration is revealed, and if I would have had that knowledge of the immigration, and if I would have thought about colonizing the inhabited with Columbus, allowing myself to keep the religion, then I probably would have done it, because that would have meant that both Wolves and Totsilence don't get an additional population, at least potentially, unless Totsilence now would have decided to prepare for it, but that would have probably meant that he can't go for 2 scientific method upgrades. So sadly, now with losing the religion, actually all of us gain additional population instead of only me. Totsilence goes for 2 upgrades, is now at 6 science production. In general, I think he has a strong position. He had upgraded his mines very early, has no strong science production, can soon maybe get into Republic, has a very strong Wonder, which maybe could get hit by Ravages. That, of course, would be nice for me in Wolves. Wolf Seeds, and the event revealed are the Dark Ages, but not a lot of science is lost, and I think it's not the biggest hit here. Wolves, I mean, it's a bit annoying for Wolves. Maybe he would have liked to get into selective breeding, but he still would have had a chance if he just went with playing the revolutionary idea. But instead, he finishes Taj Mahal, gets some culture reduction going, and then does a bit of an interesting decision because he actually just takes the Harvard College. That seems like an interesting call, but on the other hand, it allows him to invest into something nice, upgrade his economy even further without needing to spend any science. For example, if he goes into selective breeding, first of all, he doesn't get more science production, but he also just commits 5 science, meaning that while he gets some useful things done, he might delay how quickly he can get into something like constitutional monarchy that he probably still wants to get into. And like this, he could even at the next turn with playing the revolutionary idea, get into Conmon, finish the Harvard College, still get something nice done, and then in 2 turns go for the selective breeding. So an expensive pick, but maybe he also wanted to deny it from totsilence, even though with him already having scientific methods, it's the question whether he would have gone for it or not. Now it is my turn. I will use the urban growth to go for another scientific method upgrade. And this turn is quite a bit tricky, and we can also just start to see the disadvantages that I'm having because of playing on solo civil actions. My hand is nearly full, I can only take 1 card in hand. Making space in my hand is not that easily possible because I kind of want to get out of corruption, so I increase my population, but yeah, now I could take 1 card, but then to make space in my hand, developing the cartography delays the coal, playing reserves for resources as I would like to do it ideally, would cause corruption, playing in for food is maybe not ideal. So the question is, what do I want to take from the road? Because there's some interesting stuff available. There's a copy of Republic. Getting into a government form might still be important. Maybe doing a revolution could be an interesting option. There's a copy of Cavalryman and Cannons in the row. Both of them I need if I want to go for the tactic that I'm having in hand at the moment. There's a copy of Efficient Upgrade without it, and especially if I play reserves for food, but the Efficient Upgrade just helping myself maybe to get into the coal upgrades quicker. But sadly I can't take Efficient Upgrade and Cavalryman because that would not be possible because of hand space. I could have not increased my population, playing reserves for resources, just to make space to be able to take 2 cards, and then just accepting corruption. But accepting corruption in this position, I think, also would be quite expensive, and then it's maybe better to just not take the efficient upgrade at the end. Taking a copy of Cannons also seems kind of important because totsilence has the Great Wall, and it would be kind of nice to at least leave the possibility open that he just doesn't get a copy of Cannons. And then there's even another potentially interesting card because there's also James Watt on the row, and I still don't need a leader. I want to get my economy going quickly, so James Watt might be a very nice fit here. And of course you might argue that I can't just let him be on the row, and maybe that will work. But especially if I will take some cards in front of him, there is at least a chance that he will be discarded. But also, even if he is available for 1 civil action for me, and I, for example, now just take the Cannons to deny them from totsilence with the idea of going for James Watt at the next turn, then I have a full hand. And either I play something like Reserves Resource to make space in my hand, but then I have only 3 civil actions left. I can take James Watt, elect him, and then develop the coal, but I'm missing the civil action to actually go for the upgrade. Or I could develop the coal before going for James Watt, making space in my hand, and then elect him, and then going for the 1 upgrade with the discount, but it also doesn't feel too great. And so it's a very tough call, definitely not great to play on 4 civil actions for that long. So we can of course see why maybe going for a Code of Laws can potentially be quite strong. So I think for Wolves, developing that now at the end went quite nicely, but I do think this early Nobel pick also was quite helpful for him in that regard. But I'm having some issues here. So I have to make a tough call. If I just go for the cannons, it will be quite tricky to go for James Watt and getting my economy going quickly. If I just take cavalryman or efficient upgrade, I still somehow need to use my last civil action. And at the end, I made a call to just take James Watt, saying that maybe my main focus needs to be to just get my economy going very quickly, very efficiently, to not fall too much behind in that. I also don't have any culture production, so I'm falling behind in culture as well. And generally, I felt like I have a bit of a tough spot here. And so I thought, I just need to focus on that. I can't take the cannons with it also partly being meant as a denial. I need to focus on myself. And at the end, I went with James Watt, but not taking any military tech felt quite bad. But if I just would have taken cannons, and even if I would have gone for the turn with developing coal before taking James Watt to make space in his hand, then still going for an upgrade with James Watt would take all of my turn, while now, with already having him in hand, I can elect him at the next turn, go for one upgrade, having one civil action left, meaning that at least then might have a chance to take this copy of Cavalryman, which I might not be able to take if I take the cannons now, with the plan of going for an upgrade with James Watt at the next turn. So at least taking James Watt here makes sure that I can get my economy hopefully going very quickly, and also that I have a free civil action, a free hand space at the next turn to take hopefully that copy of Cavalryman if it is still there. In addition to all that, there's also a Suez Canal coming down the row, which could be very interesting for me, but at the end I came to the conclusion it's just too civil action heavy here, and I can't really implement that as well, and at least both of my opponents don't have a colony yet, so hopefully the Suez Canal won't be that great of an option for them. I draw 2 cards, the colonization card and the immigration. With not planning to go for the Suez Canal any longer, I was actually willing to discard my historic territory too. Totsilence seeds, and what I saw was I was not too happy about. The developed territory is revealed. First I thought I can maybe bid my unit in 2 cards, but then I actually need to rebuild at the next turn if I don't want to be in danger of aggression, which would delay my getting into the iron with into the coal with James Watt, and so I felt like it isn't worth it to bid for it if I have to rebuild, so I just built a bit of swordsman and the colonization card from H1 so that I could defend with the colonization card from H2 in case I should win the colony. However, bidding that low at the end means that totsilence sadly will be able to win that colony for just a warrior. And also what I didn't like about it is that all of a sudden he has a colony, and if he has drawn a strong H2 colony, the Suez Canal now could end up being an interesting option for him. Totsilence starts his turn with a bit of an odd decision, at least at a first look, because he will develop the Code of Laws, which is of course a fine technology to have, but if he would have saved up the science, and Dark Ages are out, so that is not a reason to develop it, he then at the next turn would have enough science to get into Republic, which is an even bigger civil action boost, while now he is missing some science, so either he has some knowledge about the events or some other stuff. And we might see the conclusion for that at the next turn. He will go for the Code of Laws. He will take the cannons. And then he takes the Suez Canal. Has enough resource to finish it. And I didn't like that too much because that might just give him a really big boost at the next turn. And in general, I had not the greatest feeling about this game, as Wolves will get a Harvard College now. As soon as both of them will get a government form, they will be at 8 civil actions, and yeah, both of them at this point of the game, it just looked like they might be running away. Totsilence also goes for an additional warrior, rebuilding still leaving himself with exactly 11 resources to finish the Suez Canal, but still making also sure that he gets strongest again. Wolves plays the revolutionary idea, takes the constitutional monarchy, and now we see that maybe he could have taken the Harvard College for cheaper now, but what he couldn't have done this turn would have been to go for the Conmon and to take and finish the Harvard College, while with having committed to it, while it was quite expensive, he this turn can play the rev idea, go for the Conmon, just finish the Harvard College, and at the next turn he has still enough science to go for the selective breeding, even enough for 2 upgrades, so he is drafting his economy very nicely here. Now it is my turn, I see the immigration, I'm not the weakest, and at this point I just felt like I need to get some culture going, some information, just something, and so I push. The event revealed other crusades, that event I still had knowledge about, at least I'm not part of it, so it ends up being a somewhat neutral event for me. And in this turn I will go for James Watt, I will go for the coal upgrade, and I grab the cavalryman. It's of course bad to pass on a second copy of cannons as well, but I just felt like I need to get this upgrade going. This copy of mobile artillery is somewhat difficult for me to achieve anyway. I still want to get into Conmon, which I'm sadly missing one tiny science at the next turn, so the Dark Age is hitting me with one science, maybe in hindsight still being somewhat annoying. And so I just took the cavalryman, and maybe I can start by building some of them and hope to get rockets at some point, or maybe I will get a different tactic. But I just felt like I can't afford spending 2 civil actions for cannons, then either not taking cavalryman or in general just delaying the coal upgrade, because I also needed to elect James Watt at the beginning of the turn. I draw 2 cards, Wealthy Territory and a Popularization of Science. Totsilence seeds and opens the new deposits, so I gain a little bit of additional resources. Totsilence this turn finishes the Suez Canal, and now we will actually be able to see the reason on why he probably was willing to develop the Code of Laws at the turn before, because the colony that he is getting is the autonomous territory. He will choose to get 4 science, and out of the sudden he has still, despite developing Code of Laws at the next turn, enough science to get into the Republic, has now actually 9 civil actions, 4 military actions, is running away with the cultures, 8 resource production, and I really thought it might be a tough hill to climb to try to finish before him. Then Totsilence will take the breakthrough, goes for some upgrades to get out of corruption, going up to 16 strength, and also takes the reserves as well as the opera. Now it's Wolf's turn. He will cede and opens the politics of strength. I am again still not part of that. Wolves will take the Rifleman, the breakthrough, will develop the Rifleman with the breakthrough, which is possible thanks to the Harvard College. He will build one, actually destroys a lab, but still some very decent science production, goes for another Rifleman, has the classic army tactic. And that I was relatively happy to see, because I now missed out on a copy of cannons, but thanks to this reveal, I know that I will be able to go for a classic army tactic soon. But on the other hand, Wolves is now also at 22 strength. I have only 2 military actions, and it is actually quite tough for me to prepare for defending against an aggression from him. During my turn, I didn't want to see it. Totsilence has a Suez Canal, and the popularization of science could potentially work, but with Wolves having the Harvard College, and just if he gets tools for multimedia computers, he can go for a lot of science, and Totsilence might still go for Newton, so I thought this could turn out to be quite bad. At my turn, I still wanted to take the constitutional monarchy in hand. Maybe I could also just say let's wait for an H3 government form, but those are even more expensive, which could be problematic, and I don't know when they will appear, and playing on 4 civil actions for longer I think would be my doom. Additionally, it could also be extremely important to have the additional military actions from the Conmon soon in order to be able to defend against the strength that especially Wolves, but maybe also Totsilence, if he has a good tactic, soon could have. So I think that's an pick that I just have to do. I thought about if I somehow can implement a railroad into this turn. The economical boost would be nice with having coal mines, and the strength could also be extremely helpful for me, but with being on 4 civil actions, that just would be too expensive. I would take corruption now, and it just wouldn't work very well. And now, I have a bit of an issue here, because in order to build my strength efficiently, I need to build some more cavalrymen. Of course, I could go for some more swordsmen, but long term I would have really some trouble building some strength, and now that the classic army tactic is revealed, I really would like to build more cavalrymen. But if I develop the cavalryman, I just again miss 1 science to go for the Conmon peacefully at the next turn. Maybe I could build a 3rd lab. No, actually not, because I have no government form yet. So that's a bit of an issue. I thought about just ignoring going for cavalryman, developing the Conmon peacefully, just taking some risks. Maybe I have to take some risks anyway, and hoping that I somehow survive it. But at the end, I thought it's too dangerous, and I made the decision to, after going for 1 coal upgrade, develop the cavalryman, build one actually, going up to 16 strength, and then increase my population to get out of corruption. I sadly don't go for the 2nd coal upgrade immediately, but what I can do at the next turn is to actually do a revolution into Conmon, build another cavalryman, and I can copy the tactic. That makes me a lot more safe from potential wars that maybe Wolves could go for, and at least I'm a bit more threatening in regards of the tactics, because now at least I have enough strength to be able to defend against an aggression if I would have 2 colonization cards, which I actually do not have. but maybe it could still make it that wolvs rider wants to go for something else for his politics phase. I still do have some hope, though, that I can defend against an aggression, because before wolves has his turn, I will actually get some additional draws from the Colossus, and if I get lucky, I might get a colonization card, which could actually allow me to defend myself. But of course, I don't know if I will get that, and then also with having a bit more strength, at least if I get lucky and draw an H2 card with my one draw, I could also potentially defend against wolves. So again, a tough spot. I could get hit by an aggression, and in my situation it could just be game over. But if I don't get hit, maybe I can do a revolution, stabilize myself in the military, and at least now with having had James Watt, have a somewhat solid economy going. But even then I'm still quite a bit behind in culture, so it's still a bit of a tough hill to climb. I keep the colonization card and the popularization of science. I don't draw another H2 colonization card. Totsilence is willing to pay 3 civil actions for the selective breeding, but he also has a lot of civil actions, just wants to get his food production going as quickly as possible, which I think is a good decision by him. He even then takes 2 copies of frugalities. Those 2 will allow him to get some population very quickly, and he also gets a happy face solution for 1 civil action. And he then reveals the defensive army tactic, which makes him quite threatening if he is able to build 2 cannons soon, and he will be able to do that even already at the next turn. But he also will lose Jan Žižka now, meaning he will lose quite a bit of strength, and maybe there's a chance that wolves will actually choose him as the target of an aggression if he will go for an aggression. Because wolves, as we can see when the age ends, is now at 12 strength only, has only 3 military actions left, would actually need 3 H2 colonization cards in order to defend himself. And of course I was interested to see what I drew, and I was so relieved to see that H3 colonization card, because out of the sudden I can defend against an aggression again. Colossus coming in very clutch. But now I thought maybe totsilence will be the target of an aggression anyway, and I mean it is a bit dangerous for him. He has a strong position, but a bad aggression can of course still be a setback, especially if wolves get something nice out of it. So an interesting decision to be willing to go that low in strength. But wolf still goes for me against an aggression, and with the type of aggression that he's having, that's of course completely understandable, because at this point totsilence has neither leader nor unfinished wonder, so the infiltrate doesn't do anything against him. It actually also wouldn't do that much against me. It still would be bad, but I have already upgraded 2 mines. Of course I have still a lot of potential with James Watt, maybe upgrading the last mine, going for some mechanized agriculture, getting the civil action back when going for a new leader, so I definitely defended here, but not the best timing for an infiltrate here for wolves, because totsilence, if he had some other aggressions, maybe could have been an attractive target, but maybe with totsilence that willingly going that low in strength, it could also be a sign that actually he has the necessary colonization cards to defend himself. But I was definitely relieved that I can defend this aggression. Wolves plays the reserves for food. He needs to fix his happy faces, can do that with going for theology. Now he needs to fix his food production, can do that with going for selective breeding. And then with the remaining civil actions, he will take the efficient upgrade, use it immediately for another upgrade, and then takes the architecture. Now it is my turn. The impact that I've drawn is not that great for me at this point, with both of my opponents having that many civil and military actions. And maybe I could just pass my politics phase. But at the end I thought, I don't remember my exact reasons, but I think I probably just thought, I'm behind, I have a tough situation, I just need to hope for something good, I need to see it, at least get some culture from there, maybe I can somehow win the vast territory relatively cheaply, which I will now cede, because the popularization of science with computers coming down the road, which I will not take, with totsilence maybe still going for Newton, I thought could be a potentially interesting or potentially good event for my opponents, so I didn't want to see that, and at the end I just ceded a vast territory. Maybe not ceding could be fine, but also just thought something needs to be done. The event revealed is not really that great for me. Losing James Watt, I could have maybe gone for 1 more upgrade at the next turn. Maybe there could have been a possibility to go for some cheap Mag X. At least wolves also loses Nobel, which hits him a bit, but player that really profits from that event being revealed now is totsilence. He actually hasn't committed to an H2 leader yet, so he can now, after the event has been revealed, just go for maybe Newton or Napoleon, and then just has his H2 leader for the remaining of H3. So a very good timing for him. Maybe he was also the one who put it into the deck, and yeah, that works very well for him here. Then during my turn, I will just do the revolution to constitutional monarchy. I otherwise wouldn't have enough military actions to build another cavalryman and copy the classic army tactic, but with the Conmon I can do it, and with copying this tactic I will actually be at 25 strength, so I have stabilized in strength, and now I will have to see what I can do with it. I draw one card, another aggression. Now it's Totsilence's turn. He will go for Newton, doesn't go for Napoleon. Maybe with the defensive army, he could have gone for some pressure, but Newton just offers a lot of benefits. He can already this turn save 2 civil actions. Thanks to Newton, can play the wave, increases population 2 times, builds 2 cannons, goes for an upgrade to organized religion to fix his happy face issues, takes the strategy, the revolutionary idea, is at 32 strength and is just looking very strong. We can also take a look at the overview, but maybe after Totsilence had his turn and his production, so that all players had the same amount of turns. And we can see that Totsilence has the culture lead, but at the moment not the highest culture production. But he has a lot of civil actions, has Newton for even more civil actions, has the highest resource production, fine food income, has a very strong tactic together with the Great Wall. So I do think he probably has the best position, but also wolvs has a fine position, has now lost Nobel, so that costs him a bit of science production, but he also has lots of civil actions, a fine production, his position probably not being as strong as Totsilence, but still very playable. And mine compared to that, I still need to fix my happy faces. There's actually an emigration coming that I've seeded earlier. I was actually willing to hit that when I seeded the vast territory, as I just thought I need to start taking some risks, but maybe that was still an unnecessary one. And yeah, my production is not really greater than my opponents. I have even less civil actions, so yeah, the question is, how can I come back into this game? One reason or one possibility maybe could be Pierre with some cheap arenas and getting a lot of culture production, maybe going for wars if I'm getting air forces and one of my opponents will of course miss out on them. That could be a way, but at this point I was not overly optimistic. wolvs will go for computers, and as you can see, Pierre actually revealed on the card row here, wolvs doesn't have any arena, so I had some hopes here that maybe there could be a chance that I will be able to get him at my next turn and at least get an early replacement. But wolvs, maybe seeing that Pierre could be quite strong for me and maybe him being still a solid leader for himself, makes the decision to go for this, I think at least partly hate draft. But also, of course, Pierre can be nice for himself with the Olympic Games. Maybe he gets professional sports, maybe even together with the internet at the next turn. So Pierre also, of course, having some potential for himself. Now it is my turn. I could have seeded again. I'm not the weakest. The immigration could be revealed, but I might be willing to take the risk. But just both of the cards that I could seed are not looking that great, so I passed on seeding. I could have maybe tried an aggression against wolvs, but because maybe I need to hope for something very lucky, but I at the end didn't want to miss out on draws. I will go for Mandela this turn. I just think I need to get a replacement leader as quickly as possible, and I think going from 6 to 7 civil actions is quite viable. Maybe if I still get something like military theory or civil service, the impact of government could even get playable. So I go for Mandela, I elect him, I take the air forces, and I increase my population and build another cavalryman to get out of corruption using the 1-3 military action that I'm having. Now, as I said, one way how I can maybe get back into the game is I thought that I get air forces, my opponents don't, one of my opponents don't, and I somehow can punish that. I especially had wolvs in mind when thinking about that. He has also the classic army, and without air forces, classic army is a bit limiting. He doesn't have the most resource production. Sadly, he has a military build-up in hand that will provide him a lot of resources, but I thought maybe that could be interesting and a way to get back. I also ideally would like to have the military theory, but taking both here is not that easily possible. If I don't go for Mandela, it would take all of my civil actions, so I was hoping that I might get another chance to get a copy of military theory. I draw some cards. I don't draw a war yet. 2 more impacts. Impact of colonies could be playable, especially if I think that maybe wolvs is the player that I try to overtake here. Agriculture is not looking that great at this point. Totsilence seats, opens the international agreement, he is the strongest, he will be able to take some cards, will actually go for oil mines, getting even bigger production going, goes for Marie Curie, is now at 14 resource production, 9 science production, produces some culture, and then he will also take the fast food chains and the satellites, has now probably the best wonder that is in the mix, and the only wonder remaining for me is the Manhattan Project, which is not that ideal. I mean, could be helpful if I wanting to go for some strength, but Totsilence, at this point I thought it's almost impossible that I will be able to finish before him, and at this point I was mainly hoping that maybe there will be something possible with wolvs, especially if he is the player who will miss out on air forces. Now it's wolv's turn, he seats and opens the arms industry. That is a good timing for me, because as we can see at his turn, after playing the military build-up, he will actually go for the tanks, and then he would have gained 2 resources more, and I wouldn't have gained any resources. So good timing by me, also because the immigration hasn't been revealed yet, so I'm getting a little bit lucky here. Maybe luck that I could at the end need to come back into the game. wolvs will build an additional computer, is now at 13 science production, but doesn't have the most resource in his bank, and that was the one thing that I was really hoping towards here, that could be at the end maybe a limiting factor for him. And additionally, a second copy of Military Theory appeared, which I will have a chance to take, and maybe I am getting somewhere with that if I still get a war, of course. That is still an important requirement. I definitely take the Military Theory immediately, and as you can see, I also go for the professional sports. Professional sports maybe being a bit questionable. I could maybe also get the revolutionary ideas, reserves, and just get as many resources as possible. But going for pro sports will get me a bit of culture production with Mandela. Is generally nice for a lot of impacts. I take the first copy away from wolvs, who has Pierre, and also just gives me some additional strength. And if at the end just go for 2 classic armies with air forces, military theory, and maybe 2 professional sports or something, that could be an amount of strength that could be sufficient to go for a war if wolvs maybe doesn't get a copy of air forces. So I take the professional sports, and at the end I just build one. I thought about upgrading one, then maybe going for another cavalryman. That also would get me out of corruption, I think, at least. Sometimes it's a bit weird with the coal mines. Actually, I think no, that would have gotten it out of corruption. I'm not sure, probably, but I made the decision to build one because it gives me some additional culture reduction with Mandela, and maybe I can upgrade another one, getting even more culture reduction with Mandela soon, and then hoping that I will still be able to, just after building the cavalryman, I can maybe destroy a mine in a farm or something to get an additional population, or maybe I still accumulate enough food to get another population normally. My plan was not to declare war the next turn already. First of all, of course, I don't have a war in hand, so I can't really plan around it. The question is, of course, how much do I keep my options open? But the thing is, now I'm missing 1 science to go for both military theory and air forces. If I should now draw a war, maybe that could be annoying and could make it that I, because of that, can't go for one. But I rather thought about now maximizing the culture income with Mandela, and then hoping that I will draw a war either in this draw or in the next, and then preparing for a war in 2 turns, ideally. I built a cavalryman to use my free military action, going up to 43 strength, maybe also being a bit threatening. As you can see, I actually do draw a war over culture, which gave me some hope here. And now just the copy of Air Force needs to appear on Totsilence turn, and wolvs could be at least in a little bit of trouble. But even with getting hit by a war, it could still be that wolvs is in a better position. But as you can see, there is actually the second copy of Air Force. Totsilence takes it immediately, and another hope that of course I can be having is that if Totsilence has a war on his own with getting Air Force, with having the Great Wall, maybe there's actually a way that he also can build quite a strong amount of strength and can try to go for a war for himself, which would be quite interesting for me. wolvs seats and opens the inhabited territory too. I think I was willing to bid a swordsman in 1 card, but at the end wolvs is able to win it, and at least has to send 2 colonization cards away. He didn't have a knight anyway, but at least loses some resources, even though of course it helps him with the population. He goes for the military theory this turn, builds a rifleman, builds another rifleman, takes the reserves, plays the reserves, builds another copy of rifleman, making him quite strong. Then he elects Pierre, which is important because he of course knows that he might be in danger with now having missed out on air forces, and then he needs to be able to declare the Olympic Games at the next turn, for which he needs to elect Pierre already now. Then he will take the fundamentalism, the endowment, and the efficient upgrade, and he has enough science to already go for the fundamentalism at the next turn. So he is doing his best, trying to prepare for some good amount of strength with building one more tank. He has a second classic army tactic. He can get the fundamentalism, but maybe going for a third classic army tactic could be a bit expensive, and it might not be enough to win a war, but maybe it could be enough with the Olympic Games, which are quite painful. If I want to declare war the next turn, it could potentially be enough to still be in a better position even after getting hit by a war by me. With not having enough science to go for Air Force and military theory, it's not really an option to go for a war now, but even if I would be able to do that, wolves can, I mean, maybe it would work. Wolves can go up to 19 strength, so 59. I would be able to go for 18 strength, so it would be a very small war, but I don't know if I draw another one. So maybe I would have done it. I need to take some risks, and now at least I can declare the war without the Olympic Games, but there's definitely some risk involved. Wolves could maybe get help from the event decks, or probably not the best time to go for a war anyway, but I instead see the impact of government, which is at this point still not the greatest impact for me, but I will go for military theory this turn, and I will have enough science to at my last turn, after the war is already over, to go for the civil service that I will take this turn, and with that, I thought impact of government is fine. There's of course a chance that it will be revealed before I have a chance to go for civil service, but I need to take some risks here anyway. Immigration is revealed. I got a bit lucky with the timing of that one, as I now was able to fix my happy faces. And totsilence will actually lose the population. I will go for another upgrade. I will go for another upgrade to farms. That gets me out of corruption, and at the next turn I will have exactly enough food to increase my population one time. However, after doing those two upgrades, I'm now at 10 resources at the next turn, meaning I'm still missing 4 to go for 2 air forces, and in order to be able to achieve that, I need to take this copy of patriotism, which luckily is in a row for me, and then I can develop the military theory, already going up to 51 strength, and with the last civil action I'm taking the civil service. At the next turn I can declare war, play the patriotism, destroy mine, increase my population, go for 2 air forces, and at the last turn I would have still enough science to go for the civil service. And so there is some hope here, but with the Olympic Games, wolves will get 8 additional culture. I will lose 8 additional culture when I declare the war, so I was still not the most optimistic, but on how the turns were going through during H3, there is definitely some hope here still. I do draw impact and international tourism, impact of industry, which is very bad against totsilence, but totsilence is probably out of reach anyway, and even more so now that the economic progress is revealed, which I was not too happy to see. I had just enough resources to go for the 2 air forces, so the additional resource that are now gained because of this event might just help wolves more than they would help me. Totsilence will go for an opera, builds 1, builds 2, takes the modern infantry, plays the revolutionary deer, the reserves for food to be able to gain a population at the next turn when he will have lost 2 yellow tokens, develops the modern infantry, goes for some upgrades, for all of the upgrades that he can do actually, which is just enough to get him out of corruption, putting himself at 49 strength, and I mean he goes for a lot of strength now as a patriotism in hand. Maybe there is actually a chance that he could also declare war the next turn. He does an NDH. Wolves seeds, declares the Olympic Games, the vast territory is revealed that was seeded by me. I was actually willing to bid for that a little bit because of the economic progress. I would still be able to declare war and at least go for the 2 armies with air forces, but Wolves at the end is able to win it. At least it will cost him maybe a bit of strength, even though it will maybe prevent him from having to destroy more stuff. Impact of colonies is now not really a nice option any longer. He will take the professional sports, and as a preparation for his defense will just build 2 of them, and he will leave himself with exactly 12 resources, which is just enough to go for another tank, for another rifleman. So with building those pro sports, he gets 8 additional strength for a potential war. He gets some culture production going now, and he still leaves himself with enough science and resource to go for fundamentalism and another classic army at the next turn. And with another classic army and the fundamentalism, he will be at 14 plus 8, 22, so 67 strength, which is definitely quite solid. However, it is not enough to win a war against me, and I just need to hope for something here anyway. There are the Olympic Games. I didn't have the most hope, but there is still the hope that totsilence could join on the war, and so I just need to hope for something here. Any peaceful option, I didn't see giving me any hope, so I need to declare this war, even though it won't be the biggest one. I still need to go for it. I will still steal some culture, and maybe there's a chance that I will get lucky and actually also get an aggression off at the next turn, and then maybe the things could come together for me. I will increase my population. I play the revolutionary idea, go for the air forces, play the patriotism, build one, destroy a mine, build another one. I have 2 civil actions left. I take a copy of reserves. First of all, it might help me to do some stuff at the next turn, but in addition to that, now that that one is taken away, if totsilence wants to take something like that, he needs to take the reserves from 2 civil actions, and overall, with taking that, it just gets more likely that both reserves are gone before Wolf's turn, meaning that he doesn't have the option to use it with the Harvard College. Maybe it doesn't give him that much anyway, because he has enough to go for a tank and a rifleman, but still maybe an additional knight could still be worth it for him, so I thought it should be a nice pickup. I could then just take another card and be fine with the amount of strength, but I at the end made the decision to destroy this coal mine, build another cavalryman. It's a 6 culture swing against wolves, which is the player that I'm hoping to maybe still finish before, and so I thought it should be worth it. I could, of course, there's no impact of industry, impact of balance is not that great anyway. Culture production is at the moment my lowest, and I won't be able to increase it by a lot. So only the impact of harmony gets potentially affected by that, and so with that I thought it should definitely be better to build this cavalryman. Now it's totsilence turn, and to my and I was very happy to see that he actually does go for a war against wolves as well. So maybe I do at the end get a bit lucky in H3 and somehow be able to turn this game around. Let's see what totsilence will be able to do. He plays the patriotism, increases his population, destroys some stuff, builds 2 air forces, builds the modern infantry with the Great War bonus, is now at 77 strength, takes the reserves, plays the reserves for food. Interestingly, but with playing another one for food, he can maybe increase his population and then takes the rockets away. Now it's Wolf's turn, so let's see what he will do for defense. First of all, he will see the impact of progress is revealed, which is not ideal for me because I would have been able to develop civil service during my turn, but the other impact that could have been revealed maybe is the impact of government, but still I was not too happy about seeing this impact of progress. At least Wolves will also go for fundamentalism, so he also would have gained 2 more if it would have been revealed after his turn. He will now build a tank, destroy theology actually, but still is more than enough happy faces thanks to the professional sports. Has 2 armies now, has the fundamentalism, plays the endowment because actually at this point he still has the most culture, and then goes for the democracy. Just leaving no card available for me that could potentially be useful. Building the cavalryman not only gave me a bigger culture swing for the war, but also made it that I have a bigger chance for a successful aggression, because with being at 3 strength less, Wolves now could have defended with only 1 defense card. Now he would need 2, so also for that I think it was very important to be willing to destroy the mine and build this additional cavalryman, and I just need to hope for a successful aggression. Even with the double war, things are not looking too great for me, but if I'm able to get an aggression through, if I get a bit lucky with the impacts, or if maybe totsilence gets an aggression through, for which Wolves would need to have no cards in hand, maybe there could be something possible, because as you can see with my war alone, Wolves still has quite a big lead, but the armed intervention is actually successful, so I am getting closer here. I will develop the civil service for the impact of government here, play the reserves for resources, and here I actually missed out on something quite significant. And now, when I played those late turns, I was quite a bit busy, and I also got heavily into my reserve time, so sorry for my opponents for slothing quite heavily. I mean, I'm generally not the quickest player, but I was especially slow during those days, and Yeah, maybe because I had to play the turn a bit quicker, I missed out on one option, an option that is not necessarily the best, but it definitely shouldn't have missed out on it, because I actually overlooked that I have 5 cavalrymen here, and I thought it might be nice to build another professional spots, because both impact of competition and architecture could very well be seeded by wolves, who has seeded a majority of the events, which I didn't like because I thought there has to be something good for them in those events. And then the pro sports, just to help with some impacts, might be the best thing to build. Maybe also religion for variety and potentially balance could be fine, but the thing is, in my position I need to hope for some potentially good impacts, and balance and variety, especially balance, would still not be really great for me, so preparing for them is maybe not the right call, while architecture and competition at least are somewhat neutral or potentially even slightly beneficial for me, but still would have made sense maybe to seed for wolves at some point, so I rather wanted to prepare for those. But instead of considering to delete a cavalryman, I actually thought about an air force, because that would still leave me stronger than wolves. I thought I need to keep the hope available for an impact of strength, maybe seeded by totsilence, but I didn't consider disbanding a cavalryman because I didn't realize that I had 5 of them. And so at the end I actually destroyed this scientific method to build a professional sports. Compared to disbanding a cavalryman, it basically gives me +2 for competition, but -2 for impact of architecture. Impact of balance isn't affected. Impact of science could be affected if totsilence doesn't increase the science production, but impact of science again would be one of those impacts that is bad anyway, and where I maybe have to hope that that isn't in the deck anyway. So at the end, maybe it's still a somewhat fine decision to destroy this lab, especially if the impact of competition might at the end be the best thing that I can hope, or an impact that could potentially be seeded by wolves. That could now be a somewhat fine one for me, but I definitely at least should have realized that I actually can't disband a cavalryman here. I only thought about disbanding the air forces as an alternative. With not destroying any unit, I remained the strongest, and I thought maybe there's a chance that totsilence still could see wolves as the biggest contender, and maybe he could seed impact of strength, maybe for some reason it has already been seeded, and that could be a really big swing against wolves, so now being as strong as possible could also be nice. Maybe I could also try to make it a bit easier for totsilence to overtake me in strength, maybe making it more likely that he will seed it into the deck. But the ideal case, of course, would even be if I get a +14 swing against wolves. So remaining stronger than wolves, I think, is very important here, instead of just disbanding a lot of stuff in order to build some religions or something like this, because impact of strength is maybe the one impact that I really can hope for to give me some points. Now it's totsilence turn. He first of all steals some culture from wolves. Wolves definitely gets closer to me now. And he actually goes for an armed intervention, and here, if I would have been really lucky, that one could have gone through as well, and would have cost wolves another 7 culture, which would have increased my chances, but yeah, after this war from totsilence against wolves, he still is now a bit low on culture, and with the right impacts, there's definitely still something possible. Totsilence goes for satellites, builds an opera, finishes the fast food chains for 21 points, and ends his turn, and then before the final impacts, we can take a look at the culture. Totsilence is definitely out of reach now, and Iron Wolves actually have the same amount of culture, so it seems relatively close. The problem is Wolves has seeded a lot more impacts, and there are not that many that could be nice for me, so now you can maybe see why I kind of maybe need to hope for something like an impact of strength for some reason being in the deck. To give me a bit of a buffer that I can use to survive some not so great impacts. So let's see if that impact of strength maybe is in the deck for some reason, or if maybe there are just a bunch of neutral impacts that I can be fine with. The first one is the impact of architecture. With that, disbanding the lab, not disbanding the cavalryman, maybe was not so great at the end. If I would have done it otherwise, I would still be at the same amount of culture as wolves here. There's the impact of balance. That's not great to see for me. I only gained +4. Then there's the impact of variety. So actually building a religion could have been potentially interesting. But as said, especially for the balance, I need to hope for some better impacts maybe anyway. There is the impact of culture, which is not really a great one for me. Totsilence gets an even bigger lead. And the last one is the impact of government that was seeded by me. So yeah, I actually came quite close to wolves at the end. I am only 18 culture behind him. And with how the situation looked at the end of H2 or at the beginning of H3, I thought maybe that game could be a lot more decisive at the end with how my position was, but I got actually quite close. Some things went a bit lucky for me with the Air Force timing, with totsilence joining in on the war, but even with all of that, it was not enough for me to avoid being at the last place at the end, and totsilence, just played a very smooth game here. Congratulations to him for winning it. Just having a very nice setup, going for early irons, having that great wall, Jan Žižka, then the iconoclasm timing was of course very nice for him, then with Newton and going for some big all mines with Marie Curie, also getting the Suez Canal with the autonomous. I think he played very well and things came nicely together for him. And I think I probably didn't play it well, because maybe I can of course some things went maybe a bit unfortunate for me, maybe getting hit by the Reign of Terror or something, but if I'm at the middle of H2 in a position where I think, oh my, it's looking that bad, I need a lot of luck to even come back, then I do think that there have some things been going wrong at the turns before. And going for Caesar and Colossus, of course, is a nice combination, going for some early food production, but the benefits that I got out of it, maybe not too great. I won the foray, I lost to the Reign of Terror, so I didn't get a lot of value out of the strength events. I wasn't able to win a colony once. The only one that I had, I got with Columbus. I didn't hit a jackpot, so the Colossus, maybe at the end not doing that much. Maybe I should have gone for more pressure. Maybe an economical wonder would have at the end been better. I was for a long time on 4 civil actions and 2 military actions, which is just extremely painful with how I set myself up early. I also didn't have an easy way to get additional civil actions going, so maybe I needed to hope for an early H2 government form and then a revolution or something. And I think it's always hard to point out where it went wrong exactly. Maybe I could have gone for Leonardo instead of Columbus, but I do think it was the right call with having those Colossus draws and with being at the end of the age. And I got the scientific method and actually to get some science production going. So maybe you have an idea, which do you think was maybe a turn in the early game where I went into the wrong direction? And then I got a bit lucky during H3 with having this tactic available, despite having missed out on the cannons, getting air forces, and actually being able to go for those wars. But wolvs had just a better position, and despite suffering through 2 wars, it was enough for him to still be at the 2nd place. Maybe I needed Pierre or something and no Olympic Games, but I think there were already quite some things coming together for me in order to make it that close. Alright, so definitely not a result that I hoped for, and now that we are at the end of the game, we can maybe take a quick look at the standings before we are at the end of the video. And when we take a look at the standings, and as you might notice, I this time have taken a screenshot with my smartphone because I was traveling. But in the standings we can see that there's actually also already a game from the 2nd batch finished, where again totsilence was able to win against wolvs and Epogi. So out of the sudden, totsilence being at a very great position, being the lead, while having 1 game less finished than wolvs and Epogi, having a bit lead in points against Gandin and me. So at the moment he definitely is the best position to win the league at the end. I mean, at the beginning of the video we saw that in the 3-player game rating he is actually very nicely placed, and he is showcasing that now. Wolvs and Epogi still both being in a position to potentially win the league. I of course as well can still win the league, but now I need to get some really good results going in order to achieve that, and if my next game isn't going well, I rather have to focus on maybe trying to not getting relegated. Alright, with that we are at the end of the video. I hope you are excited for the games to come. I hope I will be able to post the next game a bit shorter in time compared to the difference in the uploads between this one and the one before. And then I say thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.